What's up guys, and welcome back to another Paladins guide. This time we're going to be covering Lian with the hints and tips and ultimately the ultimate guide. I'd like to say before we start a massive thank you to all of you guys who have dropped subscriptions or watched or dropped comments and likes. It means the world. We recently hit 100 subscribers and we're still climbing with only a handful of videos. I'm now on summer vacation/holiday, so expect a load more uploads. By the way, before this starts, it's kind of annoying, but I just recorded the entire guide, over 10 minutes worth of pure speaking, to find out I have my mic muted. Well, oh well, at least I have some practice now. Let's get straight into it. First of all, let's go through the introduction. Arguably, some people like to call Lian the Lian of auto-aim. This will of course be the 5th guide on the channel, and you guys can find the playlist for the guides in the description. The Lian is a very solid damage and is a very powerful kit, and with this guide you should be one step closer to mastering her and her insane time to kill. Let's get into it, starting with the ability overview. Okay. So let's talk about her primary fire, the heirloom rifle. This is a direct attack, and Lian, contrary to popular belief, takes a significant amount of aim. Her primary fire is extremely powerful when you can consistently land those shots, and means that you can reserve the auto-aim abilities for more meaningful situations. The rifle fires a shot every 0.45 seconds, dealing 400 damage at a medium range. Although this does mean Lian has damage fall off, she can still be a problem at long ranges. Her hit scan, burst weapon, means she can outpoke some projectiles, for example Cassie, as well as causing havoc with long range dismounts as people come out of spawn. It's also important to remember you can headshot with Lian for an additional 200 damage. This can give Lian some extreme damage potential with a hit scan weapon and a quick fire rate. She's by all means a force to be reckoned with. Oh, and a quick side note, each successful shot will gain you 2% ultimate charge. You guys seem to like the facts of how much the abilities give you ultimate charge wise. Lian's next ability, Valor, her right mouse button or right click, is a direct slash area attack. Now you'll see why I've decided to put it as direct slash area. It's technically countered by Haven in terms of damage resistance, but it acts and is dealt more like an area attack. It allows you to fire a somewhat normal rifle shot, however everyone on your screen in front of you will suffer the 400 damage. But wait a second, does this mean that Paladins are secretly promoting higher FOV and bigger monitor sizes? No, it shouldn't affect it. I did do a little bit of testing. This ability can be extremely useful as a finisher for targets trying to escape, or a long-range poke. It's also very helpful in initiating a fight, allowing to deal large amounts of damage to the full enemy team. Not to mention it allows for boosting your elim count. As further explained in the further sections of the guide, this ability is incredibly versatile and can impact your performance greatly, especially when fighting mobile flankers, or people that are flying such as a Drogos. Next up we have Presence, her Q, which is actually classed as an area attack. I like to kind of think of Presence as a mini Lian ult. It's a skill shot with a charge up time, which does make it hard to aim, that pierces enemies with no damage fall off, doing exactly half the amount of damage. Similarly to the Lian's ultimate, this is very useful in finishing kills or poking for some massive burst damage at long ranges. Another important thing to remember is this attack is actually area damage, and so Haven, the most common blue item, won't be a saving grace this time. I have noticed that this ability can behave strangely at angles, so don't use it while you're peeking stairs or objects. Either way, as you can see, we're really stacking up on abilities that allow Lian to pack a massive punch very quickly. Next up we have Grace, her movement ability. However, Grace is really unique, in the sense that it's both a movement and a damage dealing one, simultaneously. Ultimately, this means that every single one of Lian's abilities deals damage, making her a single target burst monster. More on that in the hints and tips section. Grace is the perfect way to initiate a fight, and generally on Lian you always want to have your Grace and Valor and Grace on cooldown, since they're essentially no risk weapon shots that give you the extra edge in a fight. One important thing to note is the 400 damage shot will be automatically fired at the person nearest to where you're aiming, not nearest to you. This adds some extra control to Lian, so make sure to make the most of it. And a quick tip, be careful not to slide off the map in the middle of a fight. I and many others have done it a lot. Next up we have Enlightenment, or Lian's ultimate. This is again counted as an area attack. It's an insanely useful ultimate. Contrary to what you might think, it doesn't look too great on paper, but I think it's actually pretty good. And here's some guidelines for when to use it. Always use the ult as a finisher. Killing an enemy with the attack grants you 50% of the charge back. You can gauge when it's safe to use by making sure to fire 2 400 damage shots at most damages, supports or flanks. Or, in Eevee's case, just fire 1. That'll do. As with most ultimates, don't use it as a way to prolong your life for 1 second, with the entire enemy team circled around you. It's not going to work for long. It's best used in duels or to finish off one enemy before moving to the second. You can also use it to finish a pesky support or damage. Similarly to Presence, the attack will pass through enemies, but not shields, mind you, so don't fire at something like a Term, a Khan or a Makoa or something, any front line that can pop up a shield, allowing for some great plays, especially combined with something like a Carousel or stacked up corridors. Some general information on the ultimate is, it has an activation time of 1 second, where you're both CC and damage immune. This does mean technically you could use it to stay alive against something like a Skye ult, but only if you can guarantee you'd kill the Skye or any other of their members. Magically, the Sion will not abide the laws of gravity in this time. Feel free to turn into a Fusillade Drogos for this one special shot. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't seem to have any range limit or any more than your normal shots, so you can actually fire it. It's actually counted as a projectile, I believe. Talents. When it comes to legendary cards for Lian, it's wonderful. In my eyes, all of them are somewhat viable, just kind of situational. This should be how all legendary cards or talents are balanced, because in my opinion, most of the ones on some champions at the moment, there's only 1, maybe 2 that's okay. So, let's get into them. First off, we have Eminence. Presence deals up to 50% more damage based on range, and its cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds. Eminence was actually the first legendary card on Lian I played with, mainly since I only had it unlocked. From that experience, this card can be excellent on longer/larger maps. Some particular favourites of mine are Frozen Guard and Stone Keep. Furthermore, this card can give Lian some serious poke damage, meaning she could definitely rival snipers and do significant damage to scare them away. Overall, this talent adds a considerable amount more damage and talent to the Sion. If you ever miss your shot, you will be heavily punished as your cooldown won't be reduced. I guess you could say the more risky option. Next up we have Precision. Grace generates 8 ammo and your weapon deals 6% more damage. This is arguably my personal favourite talent to play with. These are the conditions that I'd recommend to use Precision. The enemy has little to no healing, so death and tax isn't necessary. In other words, no main healer or no Khan, and an off healer. You can find more information about supports in my Yin guide, link in the description of course. The map isn't suitable for Eminence, in other words, it's close quarters and enemies are tightly packed. This talent is also very useful for stomping or going up against squishy teams. Not having to reload is just generally extremely useful and allows for a literal constant DPS. Overall, if these conditions are met, then this card I would definitely run. Of course it's personal preference, not to mention the 6% damage will affect all your abilities except Presence and your ultimate. This results in a constant high DPS monster. Next up we have Death and Taxes. Your weapon shots reduce the effect of healing on your target by 90% for 1.5 seconds. This is, in other words, level 3 Cauterize. It definitely seems to be the legendary card of choice in most competitive situations. The ability to start with essentially 1,800 more credits than anyone else is arguably a tad too strong. If you're playing to win, I suggest using this card if they have any main healer or an off healer such as Grover and a Khan. You will want to adapt your playstyle somewhat to make sure early game you're spreading your damage out as much as possible, thus achieving a valuable output. The card is also extremely useful against champs that rely on self-heals, such as Buck and Pip. More on that in the rank section. Finally, we have Alacrity. Grace now hits all enemies in front of you instead of only one, and its cooldown is reduced by 1 second. My least played Lian Legendary. From my experience, this card is a lot of fun to play with, as you can build it with the infamous spammer loadout to create a synergy-fueled stomping monster. If the enemy is playing aggressively and not using cover, this is great fun and very useful. Arguably the least skilled talent, as it does encourage being reliant on auto-aim. Next up, we have Itemization. Now, these are just some general notes on what to purchase with credits. This section is to show you some good items, and it's important to consider death and taxes too, so there will be actually 2 lists this time. Obviously, these are subjective and can change depending on the situation. By the way, the orange circle represents an item that is incredibly situational, such as, I don't know, Rejuvenate. You'd only really want to get it if you have a Genos, or, of course, if you're a frontline. What you should buy for Lian without death and taxes. As with most damages and flanks, I recommend buying Cauterize unless the enemy has no support, or you have built-in Caught in your loadout. Another thing to take in is it's always best to at least buy Cauterize too. If for any reason you don't need Caught, I recommend at least buying a blue item depending on the enemy team, or if you don't have a support, like Rip or Kill to Heal will definitely help you out. As for healing or utility, which are generally the second options you want to buy, some good options for Lian are Morale Boost, for super spammy ultimates, Nimble, which works really well with the Dodge 'em Cart loadout to basically make you invincible, Kill to Heal, which is always a nice filler item, and Rejuvenate, which is useful if you have a Genos who is healing you a lot. With death and taxes, I would recommend getting Wrecker if the enemy team has anyone who relies on shields or shield front lines. This means your team has the most Cauterize possible. If Wrecker isn't necessary, then pick up a defense item, or really any item you see fit. Deft Hands isn't actually the worst thing you can get. On to loadouts. Now, I have a lot of Lian loadouts, so to avoid rambling on about each one, I would just put which legendary cards they are best paired with. Most of them can be used with all legendary cards bar Eminence, so try them all out and see what you like best. I'm actually a big fan of Dodge 'em Cart, a speed boost loadout, since it's lots of fun and allows you to be a bit more aggressive with your plays. As always, you can import any loadouts from my Paladins account, Creeves. First of all, let's start with an Eminence loadout. It'll be on screen, so I guess you guys can copy that down or just import it. Next up, a Death and Taxes loadout. I haven't really used this one too much myself, but it seems pretty good the times I have used it, so definitely try it out. Most of the rest of these are just personal preference, so give them all a try, maybe even in shooting range, and see which one you prefer. Next up we have Spammer, which again can be used for anything but Eminence really, and it's basically just to shorten all your cooldowns and use all the synergy cards on Lian, which, you know, allow one thing to reduce one cooldown while also reducing the other cooldown when you use that one, etc, etc. Next up we have Dodge 'em Cart, arguably my favourite as I said, and this again can be used on any but Eminence. And ultimately Dodge 'em Cart is a lot of fun because you can do some insane strafing, more on that in the hints and tips section. And finally, a no support loadout. Kind of self-explanatory, I'd just use this one if you have no support, as well as buying Kill to Heal. Next up, the hints and tips section. Now these are just some general tips on how to use Lian and some special circumstances. Lian can achieve some extreme DPS if she uses all her abilities in quick succession. A lot of the time this means that when you're mounting in, you're on your way back from a death, when all your abilities are active, you can melt through one enemy, thus clearing the way for a team wipe. Another important thing to remember is Lian has a very slim hitbox. This means you should always be strafing when shooting. This will give you the high ground, shall we say, in a 1v1. Paired with the Dodge 'em Cart loadout, you're basically invincible, except when the other player has godly aim. However, be careful to practice first. If strafing is throwing your aim off too much, then you might need to visit the pips in the shooting range for a while. As mentioned in the Death and Taxes section, consciously try to spread Cauterize as much as possible. This will make the team's life a lot easier. Being hit scan, it's also your job to take out airborne enemies. Make taking out Drogos and mobile flankers such as Maeve and Eevee your top priority. You can do this even more easily with your auto aim. Just wait for the Eevee to soar and then take half her health with a Valor increase. Yet again, this will make your team's life much more simple and ultimately result in more wins for you. Next up, we have ranked. This is just when you might want to pick Lian, when she is banned, and who she might counter. Now, Lian's really never banned, and in the current meta, Lian is a very solid pick in ranked. In fact, she's almost always picked, so she's never banned, but almost always picked. There are normally 1 or 2 damages that are banned, so this means that it's actually a bit of a lack of strong damages to play. Additionally, Lian can counter one of the strongest abilities in the game, healing. If the enemy team picks a strong support, a buck or a pip, then go ahead and pick Lian up. She'll make short work of them. The same can be said if you need to damage to efficiently kill a flank or Drogos. Thank you so much for watching this one. I think this actually might be my longest guide yet. But either way, guys, let's keep the quality high. If you do have anything to say, I'd love to see your comments. They really do mean the world for me. Remember to keep dropping that support. Hopefully we can maybe hit 500 subs by the end of this summer, and expect more guides coming soon. Remember to leave comments on what champs you'd like to see next. See you soon, guys. Hype for Koga. Bye.